The year is 1119. The First Crusade, a beacon of hope for Christendom, has ended, leaving behind a fragile peace and a holy land scarred by conflict. Jerusalem, once again under Christian control, draws pilgrims from across Europe, eager to walk in the footsteps of Christ. But the journey is fraught with peril. The roads are long, the terrain unforgiving, and the threat of bandits and marauders ever present. The promise of salvation is often met with the harsh reality of earthly dangers. Pilgrims, often defenseless and carrying what little wealth they possess, become easy targets for those who prey on the vulnerable. The dream of reaching Jerusalem can quickly turn into a nightmare of violence and despair. Amidst this chaos, a figure emerges with a burning sense of purpose. Hugh de Payens, a knight from Champagne, witnesses the suffering of the pilgrims firsthand. A man of deep faith and martial skill, he is moved by their plight and driven to action. Hugh gathers together 8 like-minded knights, men of courage and conviction, who share his desire to protect those who seek to honor God in the Holy Land. They pledge themselves to a noble cause, the safeguarding of pilgrims on their journey to and from Jerusalem. They seek the blessing of the Patriarch of Jerusalem, the highest religious authority in the region. He recognizes the righteousness of their cause and offers his support, granting them a space near the Temple Mount as their headquarters. This location, near the site of the ancient Temple of Solomon, will lend them their name. They become known as the Knights of the Temple, or simply the Templars. The Templars begin their work, patrolling the roads between Jaffa and Jerusalem, escorting pilgrims and driving off bandits. Their numbers are few, their resources scarce, but their commitment is unwavering. They live a life of poverty, relying on alms and donations from the faithful. Their headquarters is simple and austere, reflecting their dedication to God and their rejection of worldly comforts. The pilgrims, grateful for the protection afforded them, offer what little they can to support the Templars' mission. Every coin, every loaf of bread is gratefully accepted and put to use in the service of God. The early years are a struggle. The Templars face constant dangers, enduring hardship and sacrifice in their commitment to protecting the pilgrims. But their faith sustains them, and their resolve only grows stronger. From humble beginnings, a legend is born. The Knights Templar, a small band of warriors dedicated to protecting the innocent, take their first steps on a path that will lead them to unparalleled power, wealth, and ultimately, a tragic downfall. Little do they know that their noble intentions will soon be tested by the forces of ambition, greed, and betrayal, threatening to unravel the very foundations of their sacred order. The year is 1129. The small band of knights led by Hugh de Payens seeks formal recognition. They have traveled to Troyes, France, to plead their case before the assembled church council. A powerful voice rises in support of the Templars. Bernard of Clairvaux, a highly influential Cistercian monk, lends his considerable weight to their cause. The Council of Troyes concludes. The Knights Templar are officially recognized by the Church, a pivotal moment that legitimizes their existence and mission. Bernard of Clairvaux pens De Laude Novi Militiae in praise of the new knighthood. His words extol the virtues of the Templars, portraying them as holy warriors fighting for God's cause. Copies of Bernard's treatise spread rapidly across Europe, inspiring knights to join the Templar ranks. The promise of spiritual redemption through warfare resonates deeply. Recruits flock to the Templars, drawn from all corners of Europe. Noblemen and common soldiers alike seek to join the ranks of these holy warriors. The Templars establish a growing presence in the Holy Land, providing vital protection to pilgrims traveling between the holy sites. Donations of land and wealth pour into the Templar coffers. Kings, nobles, and pious individuals contribute generously to the order's cause. Templar preceptories, fortified commanderies, spring up across Europe, serving as centers of recruitment, training, and administration. Hugh de Payens and his fellow Templars strategize on how best to defend the Crusader states and protect Christian pilgrims. The Templars prove their mettle on the battlefield, earning a reputation for courage, discipline, and unwavering commitment. By 1139, a decade after their formal recognition, the Knights Templar have become a powerful force in both the Holy Land and Europe, their influence extending across political, military, and economic spheres. Their ascent has been nothing short of meteoric. The year is 1140. A decade after their formal recognition, the Knights Templar began to truly prove their worth in the crucible of the Holy Land. No longer a mere band of protectors, they were becoming a force to be reckoned with. The Templars quickly earned a reputation for unparalleled bravery and discipline. They fought with a ferocity that instilled fear in their enemies and inspired courage in their allies. The Battle of Acre in 1148 showcased their unwavering commitment to the defense of the Crusader states. The Battle of Escalon, 1153, was another proving ground for the Templars. Their heavy cavalry charge broke through the enemy lines, turning the tide of the battle and securing a vital victory for the Crusader forces. The Templar order was structured with meticulous care. Knights formed the core fighting force, supported by sergeants, squires, and chaplains. Each member had a specific role, contributing to the overall effectiveness of the order. The Templars' code of conduct was strict, demanding obedience, piety, and unwavering loyalty. They were both warriors and monks, bound by vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. Templar commanderies and fortresses dotted the landscape of the Holy Land. These served as strategic strongholds, administrative centers, and safe havens for pilgrims and Templar brethren. The Crac des Chevaliers, a formidable fortress under Templar control, stands as a testament to their engineering prowess and defensive capabilities. It withstood numerous sieges, a symbol of Templar resilience. As Saladin rose to power, the Templars faced an increasingly formidable adversary. The stakes grew higher, and the survival of the Crusader states hung in the balance. The Battle of Hattin in 1187 proved to be a devastating defeat for the Crusader forces. The Templars fought with their characteristic courage, but they were ultimately overwhelmed. Many were captured and later executed. Following Hattin, Saladin retook Jerusalem, marking a turning point in the Crusades. The Templars' losses were immense, and their influence in the Holy Land diminished significantly. Despite the devastating losses, a remnant of the Templar order remained, determined to regroup and continue the fight. They retreated to coastal cities like Tyre, preparing for the next chapter in the struggle for the Holy Land. The Templars' role in the Holy Land had been forged in battle, their reputation etched in blood and steel. But the loss of Jerusalem signaled the beginning of a new, uncertain era for the order. The question remained, could they adapt and survive in a world where the Crusader dream was fading? As the mid-12th century dawned, the Knights Templar were evolving. Their initial mission of protecting pilgrims was expanding to encompass a critical economic role within the Crusader states. Hugh de Payens, ever pragmatic, recognized the need for a secure and reliable system of finance to support the ongoing conflicts and growing trade. Templar preceptories began offering deposit accounts, a novel concept at the time. Merchants and pilgrims alike entrusted their valuables to the Templars, receiving receipts that could be redeemed at other Templar houses throughout the network. This innovative system fostered trust and facilitated commerce across vast distances. The Templars pioneered the use of letters of credit. A merchant in Acre, for example, could deposit funds and receive a letter that could be presented in Paris or London, allowing them to conduct business without the risk of transporting large sums of cash. This innovation revolutionized international trade. Gifts and bequests poured in from grateful nobles and devout Christians across Europe. The Templars accumulated vast land holdings, transforming them into productive farms and estates, further increasing their wealth and influence. Their holdings spanned from England to the Iberian Peninsula, creating a financial network that rivaled those of kings. The Templars were not merely financiers, they were also master builders. They constructed impressive preceptories, fortresses, and churches throughout Europe and the Holy Land. These structures served as both administrative centers and symbols of the order's power and permanence. Kings and nobles, including King Philip IV of France, frequently sought loans from the Templars. The order's financial expertise and vast resources made them indispensable advisors and lenders. However, this close relationship would eventually prove to be a double-edged sword. Even as their banking operations flourished, the Templars never fully abandoned their original purpose. They continued to protect pilgrims and merchants traveling through the Holy Land, ensuring the safety of trade routes and maintaining a strong military presence. The Templars' growing wealth did not go unnoticed, even within the Church. Some, like Bernard of Clairvaux, expressed concern about the order's increasing focus on worldly matters, fearing it might distract them from their spiritual mission. He wonders how far from God's intention his brothers have strayed. By the late 13th century, the Templars had become a ubiquitous presence in European society. Their preceptories served as centers of commerce, finance, and military strength, their influence permeating every level of society. However, the Templars' fortunes were inextricably linked to the fate of the Crusader states. As Muslim forces gained ground, the order's position in the Holy Land became increasingly precarious. The glory days of the Crusades were drawing to a close. In 1291, Acre, the last bastion of the Crusader kingdom, fell to the Mamluks. The Templars fought fiercely to defend the city, but their efforts were ultimately in vain. The loss of Acre marked the end of the Crusader presence in the Holy Land and a turning point in the Templars' history. With the Holy Land lost, the Templars were forced to retreat to Europe. Their original mission was complete, but their vast wealth and power made them a target for those seeking to exploit them. The stage was set for their dramatic and tragic downfall. The year is 1291. Acre, the last major Crusader stronghold in the Holy Land, faces a relentless siege by the Mamluk Sultanate. The city, once a vibrant hub of commerce and faith, is now a cauldron of fear and desperation. The Knights Templar, ever at the forefront of the defense, mount fierce sorties to break the Mamluk siege lines. Their courage is unwavering, their discipline unmatched, but the sheer number of the enemy is overwhelming. Hand-to-hand combat rages within the city walls. Every street, every building becomes a battleground as Templars, Hospitallers, and other defenders fight tooth and nail against the relentless Mamluk advance. As the Mamluks breach the outer defenses, the situation becomes increasingly dire. The harbor, once a lifeline, turns into a scene of pandemonium as civilians and soldiers alike scramble to escape the impending doom. The Templar fortress, the last bastion of resistance, is under heavy assault. Grand Master Guillaume de Beaujeu falls in battle, leaving the remaining Templars to fight on with grim determination. The surviving Templars, along with other Crusader refugees, evacuate Acre, leaving behind a city consumed by flames and the ghosts of a lost cause. The Templars retreat to Cyprus, their remaining stronghold in the eastern Mediterranean. But the loss of Acre has dealt a devastating blow to their morale and their purpose. Many Templars return to their preceptories in Europe, seeking solace and direction after the collapse of the Crusader states. But the atmosphere is heavy with disillusionment and a growing sense of unease. The Templars, once hailed as heroes of Christendom, now face a crisis of identity. The purpose that had defined them for nearly 2 centuries, the defense of the Holy Land, has vanished, leaving them adrift in a world that is rapidly changing. Their vast wealth and power, once a source of strength, now makes them a target of envy and suspicion. Whispers of corruption and heresy begin to circulate, fueled by disgruntled nobles and ambitious monarchs. King Philip IV of France, deeply in debt to the Templars and ever seeking to consolidate his power, casts a covetous eye on their vast riches. The stage is set for a dramatic and tragic downfall. The fall of Acre in 1291 sent shockwaves throughout Europe. For King Philip IV of France, the news was more than just a strategic loss. It was a stark reminder of his growing financial dependence on the Knights Templar. The royal treasury was depleted, and the Templars held the keys to his solvency. The Templars' banking network had become essential for the French monarchy. They managed the royal finances, collected taxes, and provided loans that kept Philip's extravagant court afloat. But each transaction deepened the king's resentment. He saw their wealth not as a service, but as a challenge to his own authority. Philip began to perceive the Templars' vast landholdings and fortified preceptories across France as a threat. They were a state within a state, answerable only to the Pope, their wealth rivaling, even surpassing, that of the crown. King Philip sought to bring the Templars under his control. He began to pressure Pope Clement V to launch an investigation into the order, hinting at grave accusations and casting shadows of doubt on their piety. Whispers began to spread throughout France. Rumors of heresy, blasphemy, and immoral practices within the Templar order filled the taverns and marketplaces. These rumors, carefully cultivated by Philip's agents, painted a sinister picture of the once revered knights. Accusations piled upon accusations. The Templars were said to deny Christ, spit upon the cross during their initiation rites, and worship idols in secret ceremonies. The charges, though largely unsubstantiated, gained traction in the increasingly hostile atmosphere. Within the Templar order, unease grew. The Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, and other high-ranking Templars dismissed the rumors as malicious gossip, but they could not ignore the growing hostility directed towards them. King Philip's pressure on Pope Clement V intensified. The French king presented the Pope with what he claimed was irrefutable evidence of the Templars' heresy, demanding a full papal inquiry. Philip, with the assistance of his ruthless advisor Guillaume de Nogaret, meticulously planned his next move. He was determined to bring the Templars to their knees and seize their vast wealth. The Templars, confident in their innocence and the protection of the Church, remained largely oblivious to the carefully orchestrated plot that was about to unfold. They continued their duties, unaware that their world was about to be shattered. In the shadows of the royal palace, Philip signed the secret orders for the arrest of every Templar in France. The date was set, Friday, October 13, 1307, a day that would forever be etched in the annals of history. The stage was set for the final act. The once mighty Knights Templar, pillars of Christendom, were about to face their darkest hour. Their wealth, power, and influence had made them targets, and King Philip IV was ready to strike. October 13, 1307. Under the veil of pre-dawn darkness, sealed orders bearing the royal seal of King Philip IV were dispatched across France. Each missive contained a single, chilling command: to arrest all members of the Knights Templar. The architect of this audacious plan was Guillaume de Nogaret, Philip's chief advisor. A man of ruthless intellect and unwavering loyalty to the crown, Nogaret had meticulously orchestrated the downfall of the Templars, providing the legal justification and logistical framework for their arrest. As dawn broke, the king's soldiers descended upon Templar preceptories throughout the kingdom. The element of surprise was absolute. Knights were seized from their beds, their prayers, their daily routines, caught completely off guard. Among those arrested was Grand Master Jacques de Molay, the supreme leader of the Knights Templar. His capture signaled the complete and utter collapse of the order's authority. The charges leveled against the Templars were scandalous and far-reaching. They were accused of heresy, blasphemy, sodomy, and the denial of Christ. These accusations, carefully crafted and disseminated, were intended to shock the public and justify the king's actions. To extract confessions, the royal authorities resorted to brutal methods. Torture was commonplace. Templars were subjected to the rack, the strappado, and other unspeakable cruelties, their wills broken by relentless pain. Under excruciating pressure, many Templars confessed to the charges, admitting to crimes they almost certainly did not commit. These coerced confessions would become a key piece of evidence in the king's case against the order. Philip, eager to solidify his position, presented the confessions as irrefutable proof of the Templars' guilt. The confessions, however, were tainted by the methods used to obtain them, a fact conveniently ignored by the king and his advisors. News of the arrests and accusations sent shockwaves to Rome. Pope Clement V, already heavily influenced by Philip, found himself in a precarious position. He was pressured to condemn the Templars, but also wary of the king's growing power. Philip continued to exert pressure on the Pope, sending envoys and letters filled with accusations and demands. Clement, a weak and politically vulnerable figure, found it increasingly difficult to resist the French king's will. As the trials dragged on, the fate of the Templars hung in the balance. Stripped of their wealth, their power, and their dignity, they awaited their judgment, their future uncertain. The stage was set for a dramatic confrontation. The king had moved swiftly and decisively. The once mighty Knights Templar were now at his mercy, their fate sealed by political ambition and the machinations of a ruthless king. Following the mass arrests, King Philip IV pressed for swift trials. His objective was clear: to dismantle the Templars and seize their wealth, justifying his actions by proving their heresy. The trials began in Paris, overseen by royal officials and inquisitors eager to please the king. The methods employed to extract confessions were brutal. Torture was commonplace, with Templars subjected to the rack, strappado, and fire. Under such duress, many confessed to the charges, admitting to acts of heresy, idolatry, and blasphemy that they almost certainly did not commit. Even Grand Master Jacques de Molay, under immense pressure, initially confessed to some of the charges. His confession, however, was vague and ambiguous, offering little concrete evidence to support the accusations levied against the order. News of the confession spread throughout Europe, causing division and debate. Some, like King Philip, saw it as proof of the Templars' guilt. Others, remembering the Templars' past service and piety, questioned the validity of confessions obtained through torture. Pope Clement V, caught between the demands of King Philip and his own conscience, struggled to navigate the crisis. He initially attempted to conduct his own investigation, but Philip's influence loomed large, making impartiality impossible. Within the Templar ranks, a spirit of resistance began to emerge. Many knights, despite the torture they had endured, recanted their confessions, declaring their innocence and affirming the order's righteousness. These retractions, however, came at a great cost. In a moment of extraordinary courage, Jacques de Molay publicly retracted his confession. He declared the Templars innocent of the charges against them and condemned the injustices perpetrated by King Philip and his officials. His act of defiance sealed his fate. King Philip was enraged by Molay's retraction. He saw it as a direct challenge to his authority and a threat to his carefully constructed narrative. He ordered Molay and Geoffrey de Charny, the preceptor of Normandy, to be burned at the stake as relapsed heretics. On March 18, 1314, Jacques de Molay and Geoffrey de Charny were burned at the stake. As the flames consumed him, Molay reportedly prophesied that both King Philip and Pope Clement would be summoned before God within a year. Within months of Molay's execution, Pope Clement V died, reportedly succumbing to a sudden illness. Some whispered that Molay's curse had come to pass. King Philip IV followed Clement to the grave not long after, dying in a hunting accident. His sudden death fueled further speculation about Molay's curse and the Templars' revenge. The trials and executions marked the end of the Knights Templar as a unified order. Their wealth was dispersed, their land seized, and their reputation forever tarnished. Yet, the mysteries surrounding their disappearance, the rumors of hidden treasures, and the legends of their secret knowledge continue to captivate and intrigue to this day. The year is 1312. For 5 years, the fate of the Knights Templar has hung in the balance, caught between the relentless pressure of King Philip IV of France and the moral authority of the papacy. Pope Clement V, a man known for his political maneuvering, now faces a decision that will reverberate through Christendom. In Paris, King Philip IV impatiently awaits the Pope's decree. He has invested significant political capital and resources in the destruction of the Templars, and he will brook no compromise. His coffers are strained, and the Templar wealth represents a tempting solution to his financial woes. The Council of Vienne convenes, ostensibly to discuss church reforms, but the shadow of the Templar issue looms large. Clement V presents his case, carefully avoiding a definitive condemnation of the order as heretical, yet acknowledging the grave concerns raised by the accusations. On March 22, 1312, Pope Clement V issues the papal bull Vox in Excelso. It is not a declaration of guilt, but a pragmatic dissolution of the Knights Templar. Citing the vehement suspicion and scandal caused by the accusations, he declares the order suppressed not by way of definitive sentence, but by way of provision and ordinance apostolic. Messengers are dispatched across Europe, carrying the news of the Templars' dissolution. The papal bull is read aloud in cathedrals and town squares, marking the official end of an era. The immediate aftermath is a scramble for the Templars' vast assets. In theory, The bulk of their wealth is to be transferred to the Hospitallers, another military order. In practice, King Philip IV ensures that a significant portion finds its way into the French royal treasury. The Knights Hospitaller, now burdened with the Templars' former responsibilities, struggle to manage the influx of new properties and resources. The transfer is complex and fraught with legal challenges. For individual Templars, the dissolution brings uncertainty and hardship. Some are absorbed into other religious orders, while others are left to fend for themselves, their reputations tarnished by the accusations against the order. The fate of former Templars varies from region to region. In some areas, they are treated with relative leniency. In others, they face continued persecution and imprisonment. Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master of the Templars, remains a symbol of defiance. Before being burned at the stake, he retracts his earlier confessions and proclaims the innocence of the order, a final act of defiance against his accusers. King Philip IV believes he has achieved his objectives. The Templars are gone, their wealth seized, and his power consolidated. But the seeds of doubt and suspicion have been sown, and the specter of the Templars will continue to haunt the French monarchy. The Knights Templar are gone, but their legacy endures. Their story serves as a cautionary tale about the corrupting influence of power and wealth, the clash between religious ideals and political realities, and the vulnerability of even the most powerful organizations to political machinations and propaganda. The mysteries surrounding their disappearance and the dispersal of their wealth continue to fascinate and intrigue to this day. March 18, 1314. In Paris, Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master of the Knights Templar, faced his execution. From the flames, he is said to have issued a chilling curse, summoning King Philip IV and Pope Clement V to meet him before God within a year. Within months of Molay's execution, King Philip IV of France succumbed to an illness. His sudden death fueled speculation about the Grand Master's curse and the swiftness of divine retribution. Not long after Philip's demise, Pope Clement V also met his end. His death, occurring within the year of Molay's alleged curse, further solidified the legend of the Templars' vengeful power. With the Templar order dissolved, their vast wealth vanished from public view. Rumors spread like wildfire about a hidden treasure, spirited away before Philip IV could seize it. To this day, its location remains a tantalizing mystery. Across Europe, tales emerged of Templar knights escaping persecution and finding refuge in secret communities. Some legends point to Scotland, where it is said they aided Robert the Bruce in his fight for independence, their knowledge and resources proving invaluable. Centuries after their demise, the Knights Templar became the subject of intense historical scrutiny. Scholars debated their true nature, their alleged crimes, and the motives behind their destruction, seeking to unravel the truth from the web of propaganda and legend. In the 18th century, a connection between the Knights Templar and Freemasonry began to emerge. Some Masonic orders claimed descent from the Templars, incorporating Templar symbols and rituals into their traditions, further intertwining their histories. The Knights Templar also became associated with the legend of the Holy Grail. Some believed they discovered the sacred chalice during their time in the Holy Land, and guarded it as a secret treasure, linking them to the mystical realm of Arthurian lore. The Templars' story continues to captivate the popular imagination. They have been featured in countless books, films, and video games, often portrayed as enigmatic figures guarding ancient secrets and possessing untold power. Even today, Archaeological digs and historical investigations continue to unearth new clues about the Knights Templar. Each discovery adds another layer to the complex and fascinating story of this once powerful order. Academic research persists in studying the Knights Templar, providing historical assessments of the order. Their rise and fall continue to serve as a cautionary tale of the corrupting influence of power and wealth, and the dangers of unchecked authority. The Knights Templar may be gone, but their legend lives on. Their story continues to inspire, intrigue, and provoke debate, ensuring that the memory of the warrior monks of the Crusades will endure for generations to come.